Now, the last thing we saw on the previous definition slide is that JavaScript runs on a host environment. So that means a JavaScript engine can be part or can be executed in different environments. The most well-known environment is the browser. Modern browsers have JavaScript engines built in, and they're therefore capable of executing JavaScript code. But you also can run JavaScript in other environments, for example, on the server side. So right on a computer without having a browser in between. So not inside of a browser, but simply execute code like this on your machine. Now, JavaScript was invented to run in the browser to make websites more dynamic, to be able to change things on a website without loading a new page, you could say. Because JavaScript is able to closely work together with the loaded HTML code, with CSS. You can also use JavaScript to send background HTTP requests, so to send some behind-the-scenes requests and fetch data without reloading the page, and much, much more. And we'll do all of that throughout the course. Now, there also are certain things JavaScript can't do when it runs in the browser environment, though. For example, it can't access your local file system for security reasons, because otherwise every web page you visit would be able to read your file system, maybe delete files on your computer, and so on, which would be horrible, of course. And in general, it is running in a sandbox, you can say. It's not able to interact with your operating system and so on. The browser gives you certain things you can do in this environment and doesn't allow other things. Now, as I said, the browser is only one environment, though, the one for which JavaScript was invented, but not the only one we're restricted to right now. Instead, the JavaScript engine Google developed, V8 is the name of the engine, was extracted by some people to run JavaScript anywhere. Because the idea was, well, if we have the engine in the browser, why don't we take it out of the browser and then make it available as a standalone tool which you can use to execute JavaScript anywhere else directly on your machine. And this tool is in the end called Node.js. Now, in this course, I'll have a separate module about Node.js where I show you how that works and how it uses the same JavaScript syntax you learned throughout the course, but which new features it brings to the table. For the majority of the course, however, we'll focus on the browser side because this is the side where you absolutely need JavaScript, and it's also the side where you're able to see more because you have a web page where things change and so on. Now, back to Node.js, though, for a second. Node.js can be executed on any machine, and therefore it's also often used to build web backends, to build web servers. Server-side JavaScript is also something you often hear as a description for that. Now, you might know about server-side languages like PHP, or also Java and other languages as well. Well, JavaScript with Node.js can also be used to run it on the backend of a web page, so on the server and not on the client in the browser of your users. Now, Node.js also has certain things it can do and can't do. Since it runs directly on a machine, in Node.js you're able to access the local file system, so you are able to write files and so on, because unlike browser-side JavaScript, Node.js code has to be executed actively by you. It's not like you visit a web page and then this starts happening. Instead, it can only access the file system on the machine where it executes, which, for example, is the server where it runs, not your machine. And it's also able to interact with the operating system and so on. However, on the other hand, since it doesn't have direct access to the loaded web page, it can't manipulate HTML or CSS like browser-side JavaScript is able to do. So we basically have inverse access capabilities here. And these are the different environments where JavaScript is able to run. Now, in this course, we'll focus on the browser side because the JavaScript syntax you learn will be the same no matter in which environment you run JavaScript code. But in the browser, we simply have more visual feedback and can see what happens. Nonetheless, as I said, we have this separate Node.js module later in the course where I'll also dive into the different things we can do in Node.js and how that works.